Welcome to our news on QTV. We take a look at stories making headlines. Information and Broadcasting Services Permanent Secretary Chanda Kasolo has told those making corruption allegations against government officials without evidence to shut up. The Center for Trade, Policy and Development, CTPD, has urged the Ministry of Transport and Communications to put on hold the planned relaunch of Zambia Airways. And the National Road Fund Agency, NRFA, says it collected 553 million kwacha in toll fees in the first quarter of 2019. And now details in our news. Information and Broadcasting Services Permanent Secretary Chanda Kasolo says those making corruption allegations against government officials without providing any evidence should shut up. Mr. Kasolo says there is no need to allege that there is corruption in government when one cannot provide evidence. He says he is fed up of people making empty allegations of corruption against government officials. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Kasolo has wondered why the Zambia police has not taken interest to question those that are making unsubstantiated allegations. He says if there is anyone making allegations of corruption, such a person might as well have evidence of their claims. Mr. Kasolo states that such evidence would be helpful in resolving some of the corruption allegations being leveled against some government officials.
I mean, that's what I'm disappointed about, because when people make such a move and you do yellow or whatever cards they're going to show their displeasure about people taking action against corruption, then we must do something. Because you see, if the police are trying, the police and other, ACC, DEC, they're trying to find evidence to prosecute people, and they're struggling to get that evidence, surely the people that are saying, or so and so is corrupt, they have the evidence. So give them a call out, let them come in, let them give you the evidence. If they can't do that, they better shut up, because there's no need to lie if you have no evidence. If you have evidence, go there, give it.
The Center for Trade, Policy and Development, CTPD, has urged Transport and Communications Minister Mutotwe Kafwaya to put on hold the planned resuscitation of Zambia Airways. CTPD researcher Bright Tizonde says this is in view of the country's financial constraints and struggling economy. Mr. Tizonde has told Q News that now is not the time to press ahead with all ill-conceived business model that crowds out much-needed private sector investment. He says further consideration is needed to ensure that Zambia benefits from the national airline and citizens are protected from the burden of additional unproductive public debt. Mr. Chizonde says CTPD conducted a comprehensive research on the matter and have concluded that the decision to relaunch Zambia Airways is not prudent due to Zambia's current financial and macroeconomic situation. He has further advised the Industrial Development Corporation IDC to adjust the business model and develop a financing model for Zambia Airways, which should be made public to address stakeholder concerns regarding operations, private investment synergies, and government financing of the airline.
The Center for Trade Policy and Development would like to congratulate the new Minister of Transport and Communication on his appointment. We'd like also to commend him on his openness regarding the relaunch of Zambia Airways. We would like to affirm our position as the Center for Trade Policy and Development that we believe that Zambia Airways relaunch should be put on hold because of three fundamental reasons. First of all, we believe that government is in no financial position, looking at how much debt has been contracted, to relaunch the national airline. Also, we believe that based on the business model being proposed, the national airline is likely to crowd out the private sector. And lastly, we believe that the chances of profitability are slim, even though Zambia Airways is going to be launched in partnership with Ethiopia. The classic case of Malawian airline, which has not broken even in 5 years, is a good example to look at.
The National Road Fund Agency, NRFA, has disclosed that it collected 553 million kwacha in toll fees in the first half of 2019. NRFA Head of Public Relations Alphonsius Hamachila says the monies were collected from 30 collection points, which include 17 inland toll gates, 9 ports of entry, and 4-way bridges, namely Livingstone, Kazungula, Kapirimposhi, and Mpika. Speaking in an interview with Zanis, Mr. Hamachila expressed optimism that the NRFA will by the end of the year collect about 1.1 billion kwacha, which is above the projected target of 1 billion kwacha for 2019. Mr. Hamachila states that the agency has rolled out the card payment system, which is running parallel with the cash payment system, with about 7,600 electronic cards being used by various motorists across the country. He has also disclosed that NRFA has so far collected close to 20 million kwacha toll fees using the card payment system and urged motorists to utilize the card system as it is a safer mode and minimizes the risk of handling cash between the toll collectors and motorists. Mr. Machila adds that it also improves operational efficiency and reduces localized congestion at the toll plazas. Finance Minister Waliangandu has been cautioned to be wary that failure to uphold budget credibility will mark his fall from grace in his new role. Economist Crispin Mfuka says upholding budget credibility is what will actually restore more confidence in the Zambian economy for investment inflow. Dr. Mfuka has advised Dr. Ngandu to be mindful that as long as he fails to execute budget pronouncements according to how the budget is passed in Parliament, he is bound to fail. He is advising the Finance Minister to ensure he makes it a point to follow through all budget pronouncements as his first agenda in his role. In an interview with Q News, Dr. Mfuka, who is also former Economics Association of Zambia EAZ president, states that this is what will in fact help in turning around the economy.
And so for me, it's him to watch very clearly and closely the fact that what is pronounced in the budget is taken through. And if he fails to do that, then it will not bring a turnaround in terms of agents having a positive view of the economy and of the country per se, so that we can once again see a lot of investments flowing in terms of having increased confidence in the economy. So for me, if he was to set an agenda, the first agenda is to ensure that there is now budget credibility where pronouncements in the budget are followed through, and if not achieved, then there must be credible explanation on why these things are not achieved. But let there be credibility in the implementation of budget pronouncements, because we've been told over and again that we are in fiscal deficit consolidation, and all that. And what we've seen is slippages from that target. And that points to lack of credibility of budget implementation.
Justice Minister Given Lubinda has disclosed that Zambia will have her third voluntary review of the Africa Peer Review Mechanism APRM in October this year, following the periodic review recently conducted. Mr. Lubinda says Zambia has volunteered to be reviewed in the areas of mining and tourism sectors as part of the 4 categories that exist under APRM. Speaking in Johannesburg, South Africa, during the 29th Africa Peer Review Mechanism meeting for local point persons, Mr. Lubinda says the periodic full country review was targeted to be conducted in 2020. He says Zambia is now ready to have her third review under requested reviews as provided in the APRM categories. He is optimistic that Zambia will record a positive outcome once reviewed, as the country has an impressive record, hence the hosting of the APRM workshop in Livingstone earlier this year. Mr. Lubinda says Zambia will remain supportive to the APRM works so as to ensure that the countries were held accountable on observance of human rights and socio-economic development. The Justice Minister, who was representing Zambia as a focal point person, was accompanied to the meeting by Zambia's Deputy High Commissioner to South Africa, Maynard Misapa. The Southern African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes, SACOD, says there is still time and an open opportunity for those who may wish to give further input in the Constitution Amendment Bill. SACOD Executive Director Boniface Chembe, who was also National Dialogue Forum spokesperson, says there is no restriction for those who may have held or still hold different views on the resolutions that came out of the NDF. Mr. Chembe says the whole NDF process was very democratic and not subject to anyone to agreeing in totality with what the others resolved. He says the National Dialogue Forum offered an opportunity for all stakeholders to give their input into what they wanted to see reflected in the different pieces of legislation in the country. Mr. Chembe is optimistic that stakeholders not in agreement with the resolutions will find time to make their submissions before the Parliamentary Committee for consideration.
and through consensus and through discussions and through using a spirit of give and take, the delegates basically came up with the bills. Now, in so doing, there has not been any restrictions on those who may have had or may have held a different point of view in terms of what the delegates agreed upon at the NDF, not to express their views, and for those who agreed with the deliberations and the resolutions that were passed by the NDF to basically agree with those resolutions that were passed by the NDF. In other words, the whole National Dialogue Forum process was a very democratic process that did not subject anybody to agreeing in totality without contesting, without expressing their views on what it is that they wanted to see reflected in the bills. To that extent, as SACOD, we have taken note of the position that has been advanced by the ruling Patriotic Front to have accepted some of the resolutions passed by the National Dialogue Forums, but also to have rejected some of the resolutions that were passed by the National Dialogue Forum. It is this democratic spirit, this transparent and accountable spirit on which the NDF was premised. And going forward, as SACOD, we believe that there is still room, there is still an opportunity for any stakeholder who may want to give further input to basically appear before the Select Parliamentary Committee, where they can still advance their position on what it is that they want to see reflected in a people-driven constitution, and what they see rejected in a people-driven constitution.
Zambia is expected to contribute more meaningfully to conservations on Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) once the SDG Sub-Regional Center for Southern Africa is opened in the country. Visiting Director General of the SDGs Center for Africa, Bailey Begashaw, has noted the great stride which Zambia has made to host an SDG Sub-Regional Center for Southern Africa. Dr. Begashaw says Zambia should be proud that it is hosting the first sub-regional center of the SDGs Center for Africa on the continent. Speaking at a media briefing in Lusaka, Dr. Begashaw noted that it is high time Africa sets its own agendas for the continent. Dr. Begashaw believes that Africa is now ready to be a substantive partner with the rest of the world on global issues.
We should be proud of knowing that this is the first center in the world. This is a center now serving other continents. We are actually in constant demand for support everywhere in the world. And our people are actually extending their horizons and trying to work with, to build similar kind of like-minded institutions somewhere else in other continents. And we've been working on, major flagship projects in the last 3 years. You might have heard that very recently, where His Excellency started board members and our board chair, President Kagame, attended a conference in Kigali in June 2014, launching a big report about where exactly Africa is 3 years from September 2015. This is like fact-checking whether we are on board or we are off track.
Speaking at the same briefing, National Development and Planning Permanent Secretary Chola Chabala said the sub-regional center to be hosted by Zambia will provide the required technical support for the country towards attaining SDGs.
This will help member states to benchmark against one another, to compare with one another, and then this will help countries basically to be aware in which areas they are lagging behind, and this will also provide impetus for those areas where we are lagging behind but another country is doing better, to cross-pollinate ideas and be in a position to reinforce what the other country is doing better than ourselves, and vice versa. So it's very, very important, because we want to get to a level as member states where the disparities should not be so huge.
Residents of Chipeso village of Chiwombo district in Katuba constituency have appealed to government to urgently address the hunger situation in the area. The residents have told Q News that the drought situation experienced during the last farming season has affected most families which are facing hunger. One of the residents, Evans Hamwemba, says the few who have maize are selling a tin of maize at between 50 kwacha and 60 kwacha. Another resident, Dennis Himonga, says most people in the area are not able to buy the maize being sold at high prices. We have more in this report.
The root causes of hunger are varied and complex. In situations where hunger is a common phenomenon, any flood or drought would drive the majority of the poor into crisis and destitution. The drought experienced in most parts of the country during the 2018-2019 farming season has created a massive food deficit that has threatened thousands of rural agricultural-dependent households. The situation in Chipeso village of Katuba constituency in Chiwombo district is no different nor any better, as the residents have been affected by a serious hunger crisis, as narrated. Some of the residents say they are unemployed and it is difficult to buy maize from those who have it, as it is being sold at exorbitant prices, hence calling for urgent government intervention into the situation.
Milisi kulibe ni ngono. Bamene bali na milisi one tin baguza 50 kwacha, 50 kg 150 kwacha. So kuli crisis kuno ya njala. Stizi wangati boma izautanza bwanji because kufika mu December kulibe vabu no vile vitankalako.
Ni ngotutotongoka kuno twapenga kuno kulya tatuchiteo chakulya fura taina kuloka kabotu ona twambaye tuye ku bantu bakachanako kunini nkubakalima batokulisha katini komwi 60 kwacha 50 kwacha so swebo sututana kulimao twaba mapenshi anene maningi muno mukatuba so buli nchetu sunibulya tulandai please ba president beso abaturanganye kwamba iswebo na tubayeye kabo tukuno
tuijisibu tongosi guno kotubede chitona turapona buti uno mwaga imagani agudya gutangona twabapenza nchijo ejo jintu kambo yuna tiyaga wagabotu bahiguleta guli habusu bala guli hamuma gasaga gomwa 25 kg 120 kwacha gasaga gomwe amano omuntu gojisindiza jimujindi mugwahi ukwana ku 20 members na 10 members alubuwa no tulapona buti gwande oti batulanganye ba president besuguno kwenda na mbulimbo tubayandide.
But Chiwombo District Commissioner Barnabas Musopela has assured that the distribution of the relief food in the district is ongoing and Chipeso village will not be left out.
Chiwombo also received their poor rainfall, especially in Katuba constituency. Katuba constituency has 7 wards. So far, my office received 10,000 bags of meal, and 6 wards in Katuba received about 6,000, remaining with 1,000 in Kabile ward. The remaining 3,000 was distributed in Kembe constituency. The relief food is ongoing. We shall continue receiving relief food until maybe the next harvest, which will be next year around February, March or so. The National Coordinator Disaster Management and Mitigation will continue giving relief food to all parts of the country. Chiwombo not left out behind.
Nakaonga reporting for QTV News.
An organization for rural small-scale women farmers has appealed to government to come up with a policy that will stop price dictation in the market. Rural Women Assembly Chairperson Susan Musakanya has told Q News that women farmers have been subjected to price dictation for their products once they get to the market. Mrs. Musakanya says this situation has placed rural women farmers at a disadvantage as they incur a lot of costs starting from production to transport costs, thereby incurring losses. And Mrs. Musakanya has noted the need for infrastructure in markets to be friendly and conducive for women who come from far-flung rural areas to trade.
There are also issues of marketing. We have talked about crops, we have talked about horticulture. We have problems with marketing because the markets that we have are not friendly. We are usually price takers. People dictate prices on the products that we produce, without even considering the production costs. And you find that when going to these markets, sometimes our roads are not that good. So for a woman to move maybe in a van from the farm to the market is really a challenge. And then when you arrive at the market, we meet people who are not friendly there, who dictate actually prices on the what? on the, yes, on your produce. You come with your bags of sweet potato all the way from the farm. You are expecting to go and sell at 150. This person just comes in and says, we can only give you 70 kwacha. So it's really not good. So even the infrastructure, sometimes we sleep in cold markets, you know, there's no shelter, you have to sleep there. And if things can't move, they cannot be bought. Even if the price is low, you want to sell and go back home, even if it's a loss. So also markets, we need markets that are friendly. We need the policies actually to be looked at in that area so that what we produce can give us profits.
The Bank of Zambia has disassociated itself from the report circulating in which it is being quoted as saying that village banking is reducing the circular flow of cash. In a statement, Central Bank Acting Assistant Director Communications Besnat Mwanza says village banking groups are an important vehicle for not only saving but increasing financial inclusion. Ms. Mwanza says that the Central Bank welcomes the initiative of village banking and would like to see these groups engage with the financial sector more, because keeping huge sums of cash in homes has its own risks. She states that there are already some financial institutions that have products for village banking. Ms. Mwanza says all this points to the fact that the financial sector is embracing village banking. Youth for Parliament grassroots manager Thomson Luzendi has appealed to President Edgar Lungu to consider appointing more women to positions of decision-making. Mr. Luzendi says there is need to ensure the country makes deliberate steps towards meeting the SADC Protocol on Gender and Development, which aims to achieve gender parity in all areas of decision-making by 2030. He says women have the required skills and qualifications to take up key decision-making positions, hence the need to appoint women to such positions to achieve the 50-50 gender parity.
Recently, we had a situation where Honorable Margaret Mwanakatwe was replaced as Minister of Finance with a male, and we also had at the same time happening another female nominated member of Parliament having their nomination to Parliament being revoked and represented and being replaced with a male candidate. So we had two female members of Parliament being moved to create a space for one male candidate. I think this doesn't send a very good picture in our fight, in our quest, in our advocacy towards achieving a gender parity of 50-50, not only in Parliament, but in decision-making bodies. When you look at the appointments which the President has made since he took office in 2016, and when you aggregate them in terms of percentage, you actually realize that he has appointed more males than females. Most of his appointments are actually male-oriented. So we would love to appeal to the Republican President.
Youths of Katuba constituency have been commended for having heeded President Edgar Lungu's advice not to fight each other on political lines during the recent parliamentary by-election. Raphael Chota Ward 22 Councillor Joseph Tamba is happy that the counsel by President Lungu during the campaigns sank in the minds of the youth. Mr. Tamba, who is also PF Mandevu constituency chairperson, has encouraged youths from all political parties to continue coexisting as they did in Katuba.
I'm happy that we, Patriotic Front leaders, always we emphasize our leaders to follow the instruction from the President, His Excellency Mr. Edgar Chabalula. He was saying that we should not promote violence in this country because we are one Zambia, one nation. And I'm happy that the Katuba by-election went freely without violence. I think we have to maintain the same stance, because if we keep on inciting youths to rise against each other, it's not it doesn't occur well, more especially in this country which has been declared as a Christian nation, because in the central region everyone is looking at Zambia. How are we behaving in terms of violence? How are we behaving in terms of uniting the people of this country? So it is very important. Let's continue with the same spirit that we should not fight each other, because we are brothers and sisters in this country.
To end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines. Information and Broadcasting Services Permanent Secretary Chanda Kasolo has told those making corruption allegations against government officials without evidence to shut up. The Center for Trade Policy and Development, CTPD, has urged the Minister of Transport and Communications to put on hold the planned relaunch of Zambia Airways. And the National Road Fund Agency, NRFA, says it collected 553 million kwacha in toll fees in the first quarter of 2019. On that note, we end the news. Thank you for watching.